2023, LEGO decided to shrink down and re-release a portion of one of its most popular LEGO Harry Potter sets ever, and in 2024 they've done it again, and it looks like they're going to be replacing the set entirely. Today we'll be taking a look at the LEGO Harry Potter Diagon Alley Ollivanders buildings that are both currently on shelves at the moment. This one on the left released in 2020 and is part of a much larger Diagon Alley set, and it is personally one of my favorite LEGO Harry Potter sets of all time. The smaller one, however, released in 2024 and also comes along with a tiny Madame Malkin's building. The older model was part of a set that contained 4 different buildings, so if we divide the US dollar price by 4, that gives us $112.50 per building. Now comparatively, with these smaller ones, this set costs $90 US, however you get 2 buildings technically. However, the size of the buildings is drastically different. Last year when they released Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, I at first was not particularly impressed, simply because this larger, more detailed, really cool version still existed on the market. However, after having that set for a year and really getting to experience it, I can see a lot of benefits to this smaller system. Firstly is accessibility. The price point is a lot cheaper and it's not as daunting to buy 4 giant buildings all at once than it is to buy a tiny playset. And as much as I love having the larger Diagon Alley system on my shelf, I can't fit it all on the shelf at the same time particularly easy. In fact, I only have 3 out of the 4 complete Diagon Alley buildings on my shelf, that being Ollivanders, Quality Quidditch Supplies, and the iconic Gringotts. These smaller ones naturally lend themselves to being better to display because they are much more condensed and they don't take up as much space on your shelf. In fact, when you put the 2 buildings from the newer set side by side, it is 2 studs shorter than the original one was. On the minifigure side of things, it's hard to do a one-to-one comparison since Ollivanders is a small portion of the larger Diagon Alley set. However, this newer one comes along with 6 minifigures, including Ollivander and Madame Malkins as shopkeepers, Harry Potter, and a variety of random wizards to fill out the street. Diagon Alley, however, came with 15 different minifigures. However, only 3 of them are directly relevant to this specific store, that being Ollivander himself, Hagrid, and of course Harry. Ollivander has had a really big upgrade since his appearance in 2020, and I personally think his jacket print and even just the color look far more accurate. I'm also a really big fan of the face print. I think the sideburns go a really long way, and his face overall, in my eyes, is a lot more expressive. When it comes to Harry, however, there is only one difference between this minifigure, and that is the print on his head. The newer version, much like Ollivander, is a lot more faithful to the movie, having a tiny piece of tape printed between his glasses. And like last year's Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, a lot of the extra minifigures go a long way in making the street feel a lot more lively and lived in. Unlike Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, this is not the first time that Ollivanders has been built in a playset scale. However, this version is a significant improvement off that original one. The design of this set more closely resembles this 2020 version by having the same cylindrical windows and even reusing the exact same sign piece on the front. And besides a couple of changes in the exterior color of the bricks at the very top, the model basically looks exactly the same. I'm very glad that this is the case though, because that larger one just looked incredibly accurate and really good. So to me at least, the fact that LEGO were able to remake it at the smaller scale and still look incredibly authentic to the movies and the theme parks and the set tour is a really big deal to me. But with the 2021, the larger space meant that they could actually flesh it out a little bit more and have it feel more like a street. There's a lot more space for minifigures, and the fact that it is a lot taller as well means that there's a little bit more room to breathe overall when creating a scene. Whilst it's not entirely minifigure scale, it definitely feels a lot closer and doesn't feel quite as squished and compact as this newer one does. Personally, that's something I really like, but I also don't think that it means that you should buy this set over the smaller versions. The biggest differences though come from the inside of the sets. Looking at the interiors, honestly, I am torn with these 2 sets because I both think that they offer something really interesting and do a very good job at creating some sort of interior despite being complete opposites with each other. In 2020, the Ollivanders building introduced us to these little wand boxes that are scattered all throughout this set, and there are multiple of them included, allowing you to display various amounts of the Harry Potter wands within the set itself. And to me at least, combined with a bunch of different colored plates, it really made Ollivander's shop feel very cluttered and alive and beautiful. It even came with a little desk and a second floor, having even more wand boxes, and came along as well with this little ladder that can kind of be moved around wherever you want. I really love how some of the wand boxes are sticking out of the shelves, but one thing that it was missing was Ollivander's sliding ladder. This little folding thing doesn't quite cut it, and while you can put it wherever you want, that is a very fun and memorable thing from the movies, is Ollivander sliding in on his ladder.
I wondered when I'd be seeing you, Mr. Potter.
And that one thing in particular is one that this smaller version did really well. Despite its size, they were able to include that play feature, and while the ladder does get caught quite often and it's not super easy to slide him, you can slide Ollivander back and forth. Being more modern too, it does benefit from introducing some brand new molds. So while the 2021 introduced the one boxes, the 2024 version introduces a ton of new different one molds, which for Ollivander specifically, I feel like is a really big thing. There are 5 new one molds in total that come in 2 different colors, and they are scattered all throughout the shop on display, looking a lot more similar to a lot of the Harry Potter gift shops that you would find in New York or in the various Harry Potter theme parks around the world. So whilst it doesn't necessarily feel particularly Wizarding World-like, it still does feel very authentically Harry Potter and still does technically match Ollivander's from an accuracy point of view. And despite the one box mold being around for several years, there is only one included in this set, which I feel like was a really big missed opportunity. I would have loved to have seen at least 1 or 2 more scattered throughout these back walls just to make the shop feel a little bit more lively. I feel like the whole attraction and appeal of this interior is from the new one molds, but if you remove them, it honestly feels quite bare, unlike the Weasley's Wizard Wheezers set last year, which I felt was a really big improvement off the older model. Something that is a really fun addition though is the inclusion of the little flower vase, which was notably absent from the 2020 version despite being a quite prominent moment in the Philosopher's Stone. However, as much as I really love these new one molds, I feel like the older model has a much better interior. It feels a lot more like Ollivander's. It isn't quite as basic, and in my eyes at least, it has a lot more detail and texture to it, unlike the newer one. Out of these 2 sets, the 2021 is definitely my favorite, but the problem with both of these sets is that you kind of have to just pick a system and decide which one you're going to invest in. Unless you were just planning on purchasing Ollivander's, with these sets, you've really got to think about the future. With the older Diagon Alley system, for now at least, it looks like it's very much complete, with just the Diagon Alley set and a singular expansion being the Gringotts Bank. The set is incredibly long, incredibly impressive, and incredibly expensive, but in my eyes is definitely well worth investing in if you only want a couple of Harry Potter sets. When it comes to Ollivander's, there are really only 2 sets you need to buy, and that is Diagon Alley and Gringotts, and both of them are incredibly cool, incredibly big, and incredibly expensive, and it makes a really awesome and very large display. If you only want the most detailed sets and have the space for it, I would definitely recommend buying that system. However, if you are a little bit more strapped for space and you like collecting other Lego themes, or maybe you just don't want to spend that much money all at once, these smaller sets are definitely the way to go. They're easier to display and also seem to be coming with things that we haven't even seen in this larger system. So for example, with Ollivander's, we got a Madame Malkin's building. In the end, you'll also end up with more minifigures and have a much more populated street if that is something that you're interested in, but most importantly, it is way easier to display. In my eyes, both of these sets are absolutely fantastic, and at the end of the day, it just comes down to how much space you have available. If I could only pick one, I still lean to the larger Diagon Alley system, but let me know which one you plan on buying in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing to my channel down below, and until next time guys, I'll see you later.